Rupert Sheldrake, an author and a scientist. He wrote The Sense of Being Stared At. I never quite envisioned that the sense of being stared at would be my story. It's how my story started, there on the riverbank when I was little, being stared at by an unusual woman. The sense of being stared at that began to happen in other places as we moved around in the area. The sense of being stared at every Wednesday night on a dark country road as we went to a little stone church across state lines. The sense of being stared at from the cedars by a big man who looked very, very much like the one who had watched me on the river. The sense of being stared at every time I rode my bike down the long country road. From the darkness of the trees, I always wanted to be home before it got dark. It was so pervasive that I still have dreams of them from my childhood home. That sense of being stared at. And there's nothing quite like being stared at by them. The thing about my sense of detecting when I'm being stared at is that I can envision who, what is staring at me. It materializes in the mind just as much as mind speak. But I pick up the image of them in full detail. And so that little country road, I knew what was looking at me from beyond the cedars. And occasionally I would catch glimpses too. That sense of being stared at never stopped. Even when I moved to other areas in the region during college, every time I went hiking, when I rode my bike as a kid, when I would take drives, when I would go into new parts of the state, you get used to it. Get used to being stared at by them, always being watched. And when it's your family of them, it becomes a safety. You become used to their looks. You become used to their energy. You learn how to differentiate who's looking at you. You learn that it's not always them looking at you. Sometimes it's others who don't belong, rogues, different beings. There's other people out there too. People that are their enemies. There's predatory things I don't even know how to describe and define. Things that people call crawlers or rakes. I don't camp in the woods anymore. When I was younger, in my 20s, I camped all the time. I met their enemies on the riverbank. I thought it was them, but it wasn't. I didn't realize that till I called them to my tent, thinking it was my family. I even got out of my tent I stood up. I just wanted a moment of connection. And to my surprise, when I looked up, it wasn't my family. And when I lost consciousness, I felt myself, my body dropping. That I never hit the stones of the riverbank. It was different eyes that were on me that night. I don't have a memory of what happened after that. I woke up to the sound of my tent zipper zipping, and I was in my tent on top of my sleeping bag, hearing footsteps walking away. I still don't know what happened that night. I can't explain all of it to you in one night, in one setting. All I know is that there's just some of us out there who have the contact, who have the different frame of mind, that we experience them on a whole different level than everybody else does. I didn't take a researcher approach. They were my family. They were the ones I felt safe with. I grew up in a family that I didn't feel safe with. My home life was lonely and quiet. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't come into the house until it's night. Don't bother me. Don't be around me. That was my childhood. So feeling the love and the care from my forest family, it was on a whole other level. It still is. And I moved away from them, and that's a long and complicated story as well. Maybe I'll share it, maybe I won't. Maybe someday I'll write a book and people can understand the vastly different life that I led and was able to share little snippets with people here and there. Friends, co-workers, family, they all knew. Some of them saw them. Some of them experienced some really strange things. I had a co-worker who pissed one of them off, and he gave her a migraine that lasted weeks. He told her to apologize. And being unable to cope with the headache anymore, she apologized, and her migraine immediately stopped. So while not every experience that people dealt with was negative, they were most certainly impactful. Being around them changes you. It changes your whole life. It rearranges it. And walking between this culture and theirs, it's unsettling. It's lonely. Keeping them a secret all the time. It's living a double life. It's having to keep a majority of your life completely secret, completely silent. You can't share the exciting parts. You can't share the scary parts. You can't share the sad parts. You can't share anything. People don't understand even when you can share. They don't know what it's like. They can't live really vicariously through you. They can't understand the challenges, the desire to be closer but knowing that you can't survive in their world. It was a lot of heartbreak. It was a lot of joy. And I don't live too close to their world anymore. I miss it sometimes. And I go out into the woods these days in an area where they're at. Not my clan, but a new one. And I still have the sense of being stared at by new eyes and friendly souls, thank goodness. But I don't know the area. It doesn't really feel like home. It's their summer place. They're gone in the winter. So when I go there, it's completely silent. And the birds aren't singing on sunny days. There's nothing staring. And that's just as unsettling.